Afternoon, everyone. I don't sing and I don't dance, so from that side of things, I'll leave that in Alan's capable hands. I'm also called Dr. Doom sometimes because I do talk scary stuff. Unfortunately, I don't do it in a fun way particularly often, but hopefully we'll have a fun 45 minutes and you guys will understand the threat actors a bit more, what they're doing to attack you guys, and hopefully give you some ideas on things that you can do to help defend yourselves a bit better. Does that make sense? Right, so introduction covered off. So I'm going to focus a little bit on business email compromise, which is funny because business email compromise has kind of evolved into QR code compromise or phishing. I'm also now seeing AI being used as part of a compromise attack where they'll actually use AI to come up with people's voices or potentially a video call. So it's ever evolving. So it's just business compromise, whether it's email as the attack vector or not, who knows. I'm also going to talk a bit about ransomware, which is probably top of most people's mindsets from an education IT perspective. Then some takeaways. A little bit about me first. So I'm Neal. I run the technology services team for Sophos, based up in Manchester. I've been at Sophos 20 years next week. Before that, I was a cybersecurity team in a public sector organisation. So I've lived cybersecurity from your end before I come and join the dark side, so to speak. I'm a member of the Goodwood Road Racing Club. So if there's any petrol heads in here, they'll know who that is. I'm also a non-league football club director. I also support Tottenham, sorry. And I love photography. So for those that know motor cars, that's a lovely Ferrari that I actually went up the Goodwood Hill in at Festival of Speed this year. I am on X, Twitter, though it is driving me up the wall a bit. Before I go further, how many people here use Sophos for endpoint protection? Okay, how many use Microsoft? Right, I'm going to apologise in advance to you guys. There's a video a bit later on where we actually use Microsoft as an example AV product. You can pretty much name anything under the sun other than Microsoft, and you'll end up with the same results. But Microsoft, the video is actually taken at Black Hat earlier this year. We did a piece there, so the video's from that. We use Microsoft fully configured Windows Defender for endpoint. You can put anything under there: CrowdStrike, Sentinel-1, ESET, etc., etc., etc. The results will be exactly the same, but we'll get to that. Cool. As a load of you have got no Sophos, most of this will probably be kind of fairly standard. So globally, we have nearly 600,000 customers, of which approximately half of them use our endpoint products, and half of them use our firewall products. So again, lots of education in the UK use our next-gen firewall solutions for firewalling and web filtering for Kixie. Again, we've got some white papers on how we can do all that. The interesting stats for me are the 24,500 here. So we also do a managed detection and response service. Doesn't need our endpoint product. So if you're running Defender, Sentinel-1, CrowdStrike, whatever, we can actually sit over the top of it, so you don't have to use our endpoint product. But it's for environments where they want that 24/7, 365 monitoring from a cybersecurity service to protect your environment from getting compromised. And again, we've got Wave 9 and LGFL outside, so if you want to know any more, I'm not plugging in much more than that. But if you want to know more about what we can do to help protect your environments with your current investment in current cybersecurity solutions, then come and talk to us. Anyway, right, moving on. So a few of you have seen these slides. So some of these slides have come from our State of Ransomware survey that we do every year. So every year we go up to about 5,000 organizations globally. We'll then compile all the scary results together, put it together, and then produce a report. We'll then do a sectorized report as well. So this one's purely for education. Strangely, a lot of this data ties up nicely with the Microsoft data from their very recent cyber defense report. So that came out a couple of weeks ago. So again, I'll use some of their data in this just to reiterate. From an education sector perspective, education sector is the second most targeted environment, with about 21% of cyber attacks that Microsoft recognise actually attacking education establishments. So it's, hello?
Could you define hit? Like, is that a successful attack or is that an attempt?
So it's quite an open question. My view is a hit could be one machine to many machines where they've had a ransomware incident, whether it was successful or not. Again, that's up to the solution that we're providing. But yeah, we're quite open with some of these questions, and it's open a lot to interpretation. But certainly from the data we're seeing, whilst the number of attacks is coming down, a lot of that is down to the fact that you guys are investing a lot in cybersecurity solutions and they're getting better at preventing it. So again, it's showing hopefully this year's data or the 25 data will keep that trend coming downwards. Root cause of ransomware, again, Jay was talking earlier about pen testing, vulnerability testing, things like that. And it is by far the highest attack vector into an environment is through compromising machines. Behind that, compromised credentials. So again, I've got a video, a couple of slides on, just show you how easy it is to compromise users' accounts. Malicious emails, phishing emails, brute force attack. Again, it's the interesting one from my perspective. A lot of schools, when COVID hit, and a lot of organisations globally, rushed to support home working or remote education or training, things like this. A lot of that was provisioned through VPN tunnels or remote desktop, which they expose out to the internet. Brute force attacks are typically where the bad guys have worked out your username structure, so be it RDP, VPN connection, and brute force the password. Lots of organisations don't use MFA, and whilst it's a pain in the proverbial to set up and get approval to use it, having that gives you that extra protection against those attacks, and it makes it far more complicated and far harder for them to just get anywhere with just username and password. The other thing that you've got to remember is, certainly when I was in IT security 20 years ago, most attackers, most virus writers were snotty-nosed kids working in their bedrooms, writing a virus or a worm to gain a bit of credibility with their mates. You're now fighting organised crime, serious organised crime groups, typically based in Asia or Russia. And these organisations can have thousands of employees. So you guys have got your work cut out for you. Again, these teams have first level hackers, second level hackers. They have escalation hackers, they'll have tech support, they'll have QA. They will have access to every single cybersecurity product in the industry. So they will QA test their products against Windows Defender, CrowdStrike, Falcon, Sentinel-1, ESET, Bitdefender, you name it. They will test their products before they release it against all of those other vendors, looking for ways to get to either find vulnerabilities or ways to get around them. So it's a big organised crime. Once they've then compromised the environment, they'll then sell the credentials online. So half the time, the people that buy the credentials, and some of these credentials, again, it's a slide from a couple of years ago, the gangs will pay $20, $30, $40, $50,000 for a set of credentials to attack an environment. And once they've got those credentials, they'll go and have a pop at it. And then they'll write back to the syndicate and say, yeah, we've got it. Or can we have a refund, please, because the credentials have changed. Other thing they'll do is they'll pay more for compromised Apples than they will for Windows. The reason for that is a lot of Apple users log in as admin and they think they don't get viruses. So if they can compromise a Mac, it will stay compromised for longer. Therefore, they can use it for longer as a way of sending out spam or attacking other environments or as a leapfrog somewhere else. So please don't buy into the FUD out there about you can't get malware on Macs. You can, same with Linux. We see cross-platform malware out there, and bad guys don't care whether it's a Mac or a Linux or a Windows box. If they've got data on there that's worth stealing, they'll steal it. Recovery time is to keep it for you guys. I tend to look at this of less than a day is typically a machine that's been compromised, in which case you'll re-image it, carry on. Conversely, at the other end of the spectrum, if someone's taken out an entire mat or a school or a large school campus, and they've taken out the backup servers, they've taken out the coursework, they've taken out the cashless catering, they've taken out the print system, the SIMS system, be it SIMS or whatever else you're using, it can take months and months and months to get back up and running. Now, during the cyber attack, I was chatting to a school a couple of weeks, about 6 months ago now. They got taken out, and it was things like printing coursework or sheets to do in class. They've had to go to the school up the road and said, sorry, can we borrow your printer, please? We can't print anything. They couldn't, the cashless catering system got taken out, and they had to pay for 6 months' food for the kids because they couldn't get the catering system back up and running, or the cashless payment system. And again, it's all those other ancillary services. And again, things like CCTV, the smart controls maybe for your doors. Because again, guys were talking earlier about access control systems and things like that. Half the time they're connected to a network somewhere. So what happens if you can't get the doors open? What happens if you can get the doors open and people start wandering in from the other way? Again, things to consider, but that recovery time is key, and having a good incident response plan that is tested regularly. And again, it was commented earlier, make it fun. Do some tabletop exercises, but include other departments. And again, very few companies actually sit there and do a tabletop exercise anyway, but having your admin staff in there, your senior leadership team, people that run your social media, having them involved and understand the process that what you guys are going through means that you can pretty much guarantee within 10 minutes of you having a cyber accident, you've got some parent phoning up saying, oh, Johnny's told me that you're under attack. But if you haven't gone and spent the time with the admin team that pick up the phone and answer these questions, they don't know how to respond. And then within 10 minutes of that call happening, you'll find that you've got the local press on the phone. Oh, we understand you're having a cyber attack. Can you tell us anything? So you need to have your response plan practiced and in a format that isn't on one of your computers. Because if they've taken out your computers, you can't get your response plan. So things to think about there. The other key point that's changed is adversaries don't break in anymore, they log in. They're using credentials. So looking at business email compromise, and again, everyone uses Microsoft or Google. I wonder, am I tied over here? Tied over here, okay. Bungee strap. I like wondering. So business email compromise, effectively they are targeting your normally people within your organization that handle things like invoices and money. And again, they'll use things, again, Jay was talking about it earlier, open source intelligence. So they will look at the darknet for people's usernames and passwords. They will look at your website. They will look at who's in your admin team. They will look at social media, LinkedIn, things like that.
We had it recently, so we changed head teachers last year. Literally, as soon as they get a sniff that your head teachers change your information about schools, you'll get targeted with it from the head teacher in their name. Like it just.
Oh, it's a free-for-all. The good thing and the bad thing is all of this information is captured in the audit logs. The bad thing is it puts the onus on you guys to find it. So depending on what license you've got from Microsoft will depend on how much information you actually get out of those audit logs. But it's time consuming, and time is the critical factor here, is how long you're potentially exposed to an attack and how long it takes you to respond. So again, I think Jay was talking earlier about hours. Things like Microsoft Sentinel as a SIM or other SIM solutions, they typically work off an hourly schedule to do stuff, which is why an MDR service is slightly different, because that's a proper 24/7 service. And he was quite right to point out response times, because the longer it takes you as a defense team to start blocking these attacks, the more time they've got to get around an environment and actually do damage. Which is why Sophos MDR, you're talking about 38 minutes. Whereas if you're looking at a SIM solution, you could be looking at hours just to get the data into Sentinel before you then start looking at it. Anyway, back to logs. Everything typically goes into the management logs. Depending on what license you've got, whether you get extra plans, give you extra telemetry into that. This is a video which I'm hoping is going to play, showing a phishing attack. So this is victim's computer over here. This is Megan's computer. She's received an email into her environment claiming to be her payslip, and everyone loves being paid, especially at the end of the month. They'll go click. You can pretty much guarantee they want to see what they've got. This is an attacker's machine. This is off the network, somewhere on the internet, running evil jinx. There are other products out there available, should you want to go looking for it. But this is effectively sitting on Kali Linux or something like that. And it's designed pretty much to collect usernames and passwords and the important bit, session tokens. Because that session token is your golden ticket into a school environment, a customer environment. The minute they've got that, game's up. So anyway, let's see if this plays without me clicking. Oh no, I'm going to have to. Oh, I'm going to have to click. Yeah, cool. What are you doing? Play. Oh. Okay. There goes. Right, so we've got Megan over here clicking on her, hopefully. There you go. Just going to click on her link to payslip. Now, again, they are very good at making these look like your school login credentials. It could look like your SharePoint site or OneDrive or Exchange Online, and people fall for it all the time. They'll go click. They'll then shove in their password, at which point the attacker has now got everything they need to attack your environment. So they've got Megan's username. They've even got a really complicated password. So again, everyone talks about really complicated passwords, be it random words or a phrase or something like that. But they've now got it. And again, they'll now go in here and they will grab the session cookie or session token. Copy. Don't you love copy and paste? And now in their own web browser, they'll go in, they'll clear their cookie cache, paste this in. Reload the page. At which point the bad guys are now pretending to be Megan, logged in anywhere in the world. It is that simple to do. They now have complete access to everything she has in her OneDrive, her SharePoint, her Exchange Online. They can do what they like at this point. So being the fact it's Megan's actually in IT, they're actually more interested in the fact that she's just been given access to a VM in Azure and the username and password for it. So again, bad guys got their IP address. What they're going to do now is set up a couple of nice rules within Exchange. Add new rule, and for some reason they love special characters. I've never worked out why, but bad guys, rather than creating a rule that just says, I don't know, paperwork or stuff like that, something generic that isn't going to get spotted, they use full stops and 2 full stops or 3 full stops. I think they just think they're a bit special. So in this case, we've got a rule being set up where subject or body including password. They're going to mark it as red. They're going to also move it so Megan can't see it when it comes back into archive, and they're going to mark it as, oh, okay, take a copy themselves, yeah. And save. Then I'll create another rule. But actually, they'll write back pretending to be Megan, saying, "Hi Duncan, please can you give us admin access to this IP from this particular other IP?" Send it. And they want to then hide the evidence. So they'll just write another rule to get rid of it. But if you think about this as someone who works with invoices, finance, banking, things like that, invoice comes in from a legitimate supplier for the school. It forwards straight out to the bad guys who then go and change the banking details on it and send it back again. Person in admin says, okay, well, it's got a legitimate PO number on there from a legitimate supplier. Oh, they changed the bank details, we'll change it. And suddenly the bad guys are getting money, not the supplier. First you'll typically know about it is when you get a second invoice from the supplier saying you've not paid the first one. But, again, just set up the rules. Bang. It is that simple. It's scary. So Duncan, being a nice chap, wrote back and said, yep, we've given you access from the other IP. Yeah, we'll get rid of that. So here they are, opening up an RDP session to that VM in Azure that's just been set up that Megan's just been given access to. Here goes Megan's password. Bum, bum, bum. They're now on a virtual desktop in Azure, pretending to be Megan. Now, thankfully, in this case, this VM in Azure is actually running us. So what you'll find in a minute when the bad guys start trying to run some PowerShell, and again, they love PowerShell, got the admin access. All right, let's paste in some lovely PowerShell commands. So things like Bloodhound or various other tools. And suddenly they're finding that actually Sophos is actually stopping them actually running it. Because the Sophos endpoint agent is sat there smart enough to say, yeah, that's a dodgy command. You don't want to be downloading Bloodhound. You don't want to be using Mimikatz or something like that. So if this zooms out in a second, you'll suddenly find that there's a pop-up down in the bottom right-hand corner from us saying, yeah, you can't do this. Again, there's a whole load of commands he's trying to run here, and they're just failing. Oh, he's having another go. Come on, zoom out. Come on. Come on, zoomy, zoomy. It's still running, isn't it? Okay. Okay. But what it kind of shows is it's really simple getting into an environment. You're then relying on the security solution that's there to pick this up. Brief highlight. All of this will be in the logs. Now, if you're doing it Microsoft way, what you end up doing is using little commandlets and Purview or something like that to go find these things. There's a lovely website down here that has a whole list of these things that you can use if you want to go find this stuff yourself. So what you end up doing in this one is kind of looking at Exchange SharePoint for login sizes, restricting it to 5,000. And again, here you're looking at new inbox rules. So again, you can go threat hunting yourself. From a Sophos managed detection response perspective, if that attack was running on a solution running us, we'd be picking up the attacker in the middle tools, we'll be picking up the attack tools that they're trying to use via PowerShell, and then we'll be detecting and isolating that machine for you, which is nice reassuring. What's it look like in real life? So this is a school head teacher in August who was on a trip in Europe, took his work school laptop with him, and he was out there talking to some other schools. They're doing some inter-school relationship work, things like that. Received an email. He'd actually then clicked on that link, put his username and password in, pretty much the same as what Megan in the video has just done. Didn't think much about it. What he'd done is given the attackers full access into his inbox, his SharePoint online, his OneDrive, and they started looking at his files. We picked this up, and within 20 minutes, we'd blocked his user account. So as Jay was saying earlier, that response time is the critical bit here. So from initial access to us actually physically killing his user account off, or rather suspending it, which then breaks the session token, was 20 minutes. So yes, they accessed a couple of files, but we were able to tell them very quickly which files have been accessed, whether there's any critical business impact to them or not. Does that make sense? Okay. I appreciate I've got a lot to whiz through. So the other thing I want to touch about is ransomware. Every vendor in the industry says they stop ransomware. Questions you should then be asking is kind of, well, how, why, what's happening? So again, looking at Microsoft data, they themselves are saying that ransomware is probably the biggest problem for IT at the minute within schools. Typical ransomware attack, again, this should be fairly make sense to you guys. So adversary typically coming in, compromised VPN or RDP session onto a jump box or something like that. What they're looking for is they will scout the network using something like Bloodhound or Nmap or something like that to find a machine on your network that doesn't run cybersecurity solution. So it could be a BYOD device, unfortunately it could be a Raspberry Pi, anything that doesn't have any cyber protection on it at all is what they're looking for. Once they've got that one device compromised, they will then establish a C2 call back home, command and control. So the idea is that if that VPN ever gets cut off, they've got another route in. What they'll then do is scan the rest of the network within the school to look for other machines not running any cyber protection at all and compromise them. We're starting to see them using safe boot or safe mode to bounce machines into safe mode to then nobble AV. So again, if you start seeing machines in your environment for some unknown reason bouncing into safe mode and then back again, it's because someone's trying to nobble the AV security solution on them. Once they've compromised the machine over there, in a typical ransomware attack, again, they'll do another C2, they'll start stealing data. Their DLP tools are fantastic. They will literally just grab data, anything with supply chain information in it, anything that's intellectual property, so probably less so for you, more so for universities, but project work you're doing for third-party businesses. So if you're doing collaborative work on something, school, business working, they'll steal that. They'll steal medical records, health records, bank details, next of kin records, passports, driving licenses from teachers, credit card information. So again, cash as catering. If you've got PCI DSS, potentially you've got credit card information. Anything that is worth money to them, they will steal it. And what they'll typically do is either zip it all up and FTP it out the environment, or if they can compromise your backup systems, they will start restoring your backups elsewhere on the internet. So if you've got something like a cloud backup solution that has the ability to back up to systems in Azure or public cloud somewhere, put MFA on it, please, because that will help stop them doing it. But their aim is to land grab as quickly as possible. And then it's what's called double dipping. So they'll then try encrypting everything. And in this case, thankfully failing. But what they'll then do is say, yeah, we've got all your data. How much do you want to pay for it to get it back? Or us not leak it to the internet and the ICO and you get the fine for it because you're losing control of it. But most antivirus solutions these days will stop this ransomware attack. Because what they're doing is they'll drop an executable on each of these machines through group policy, PowerShell, PSExec, whatever they like, they'll use. And they will try running that exe on that endpoint. And most solutions will stop it, which is brilliant. Okay, next question is, so why are schools still getting hit with ransomware? So AV solutions are looking for local bad actors. So they're looking for things like executable, like Lockbit, trying to run on a computer and encrypting it. Even Microsoft, this tweet is actually from last year, where they're saying 60% of all ransomware attacks they see is remote encrypting. This year's data, it says it's 70%. And in 93% of those attacks, it's successful. So they know about the problem. Windows Defender doesn't stop it, which is the scary thing. And they've been quite open, telling everyone, remote ransomware attacks are brilliant, but you can't stop against it. So most ransomware strains are network aware. So Akira, Lockbit, again, is the most popular bit of malware out there at the minute. You just drop it and it will scan your network for you and start encrypting stuff. They will look for mapped shares. They will look for open shares. They will look for admin access onto those machines with usernames and passwords. And this is why machines within schools are still being encrypted. It's because of that. So what does it look like in the real world? So back to our scenario. Again, bad guys have compromised two machines. And whilst they're encrypting those two machines, the ransomware is then trying to go and actually then start encrypting all the other machines within the school. And that is why schools are getting hit. Does that make sense? So it's scary, but what does it actually look like from a protection perspective? So what you need to be looking for from a cybersecurity perspective is a solution that is able to look for ransomware encrypting events without needing a processor and XE on the machine to be doing it. Does that make sense? So let's see if this video works. Yeah. So this is the video that was shown at Black Hat earlier in the year. So we've got here a unprotected Windows machine, which we're just using as the victim in this case. So it's got about, where are I? About 1,000 files in a folder. What we're then going to do, oh yeah, it's got two map shares to two other servers down here. So one's running Sophos, the other one is running, unfortunately, Windows Defender. Hence my apology at the top. As I said, you can substitute that for anything you like. So what we're doing here is, I assume most of you know about VirusTotal. So VirusTotal is effectively an online archive where people can send files for scanning. So as you can see, they have lots of different AV vendors in there, and they will come back and say whether the file's malicious, compromised, clean, whatever. What it also allows you to do is download samples from there. So what we're doing here is downloading a copy of Lockbit from 2021. It's not even the latest iteration of it, that all of the vendors claim they detect. And we're going to put it on that guest machine in a second. And let's pause. I knew this video was going to cause me grief. There we go. Right. So we're downloading a copy, and we'll put it on the desktop. So again, local machine, two shares. Both running Windows, both fully patched, both up to date. Another pause. Must be a pause in there somewhere. Keep going. Keep going. I hate running videos, especially in PowerPoint. What this will do in a second is we'll double-click Lockbit. So as with most normal encryption ransomware, it'll go splat through the local machine. Again, because it's got nothing on it, you expect that to be encrypted really quickly. You see Lockbit running as a service on it. At some point, it will start on both of these machines now, encrypting the files on those two shares as well. So Windows Defender, it's not shouting about it. Sophos is allowing a few to get encrypted. And all of a sudden, this one will stop. And suddenly, the files are becoming unencrypted. So they're back to their original state, whereas this machine has been fully splattered, and at some point the ransomware note will appear. Because it's a remote share, you don't get the ransomware note on the remote servers, which is quite an interesting one. So all the files are encrypted, but no ransomware note, typically with a lock bit. But that is kind of the difference, and why you need a solution that's looking for the process of a file being encrypted and not necessarily the executable or the application doing it, if that makes sense. Let's go. So from a CryptoGuard perspective, so we call it CryptoGuard. It's within the Intercept X advanced client. So if you've got Sophos through LGFL or another vendor or another supplier, it should have CryptoGuard in there. If you want to come and know a bit more, come and talk to us out on the Wave 9. Stand outside, I'll be out there. But what you need to be doing is looking for a solution that will detect when files are being encrypted, or the master boot record being encrypted. So again, thinking back to WannaCry and not Petya, if they can't encrypt the files, they're going to do the master boot record for you. We still see that. We also see them using BitLocker as an encryption tool. So file level, BitLocker to go effectively. But how you detect and protect against ransomware is the critical piece here. My one plug slide for Sophos. We see a lot of schools being compromised. And again, threat actors, because they're based in Asia, they love attacking in the evenings or weekends. And in 93% of attacks that we go and look at, there are alerts in the management console saying that the school's being attacked. But because you guys typically, I'm not going to say you'll work office hours, but normally you're working core office hours, you'll go home in the evening and you might get alerts on your phone or something like that, but you typically won't investigate until the next morning. This is the time that they're actually within your environment, scouting out, looking at your domain controllers. So as Jay was talking about, the minute you get domain admin account, you've got the entire environment. They're looking for your backup servers. They're looking to see whether they could kill them off. They're looking for things like ESXi, Hyper-V. And again, can they compromise ESXi, in which case they will encrypt the server's disks rather than actually encrypt within the guest VM, if that makes sense from difference. But yeah, you need to be detecting this stuff. So incursion through the firewalls, through email filtering, through web filtering, which is why having multiple products all filtering into the same solution, be it a SIM or a SOC service, is critical for this, because we can start seeing those breadcrumbs from business email compromise right when we get the malicious email coming in. Or in this case, we can start seeing the C2s and things like that through the firewall telemetry before it starts doing anything on the endpoints. But having a cohesive security solution rather than point products makes a huge difference for this. Sophos MDR, we can consume telemetry from lots of different sources. So if you've got Sonic Walls, Palos, whatever, Cisco's, for firewalls, we can consume it. Same with identity. We will work with Microsoft Active Directory, Azure. We'll also work with Google. So again, if you've got Google, we'll do that. We'll talk to backup software. The difference between the two is effectively MDR Essentials is designed for customers running Microsoft Defender who are invested in that Microsoft licensing, but need that extra security over the top. We then get asked, okay, well, what happens? I want the instant response and the root cause, which are the critical bits for me. If you don't understand the root cause, you can't stop it, and you can't learn from it for next time, as Jay was saying earlier. So you can buy a retainer to have instant response, should you need it. But if you a pure Sophos house today, so using our Intercept X endpoint, you could go for MDR Complete and get unlimited instant response as part of that license. But as a takeaway, again, as Alan, a colleague at the front was saying earlier, user security, user awareness is the key bit. I hate this, you probably heard it on the train down, but the British Transport Police love talking about see it, say it, sort it at the minute. Cybersecurity is exactly the same. If you can encourage and reward students, teachers, admin staff to actually tell you when something odd is happening, your environment will be so much more secure than it is at the minute. Whereas, as I was saying, if you keep saying no to everyone all the time, they'll find a way to do it anyway. Whereas if you could work collaboratively, make it a bit more fun, actually reward people for actually saying that they've seen stuff or something odd's happening, it'll make your life so much easier. So again, get reporting. Cybersecurity training, again, I see a lot of pushback from heads, senior leadership team, allocating time in inset training courses and things like that to actually give proper cybersecurity training. If you need help, come talk to us. We're more than happy to start. If the heads or head of business or whatever, faculty managers are open for a discussion, we'll come talk to them. So again, if there's stuff that we can do to help you have those discussions, talk to us, talk to the partners, have those conversations with you. MFA is a hot topic in schools because I know some unions complain if you start suggesting that teachers start putting MFA on phones. At least do it for the IT staff as a minimum. Anyone with domain admin or elevator privileges should have MFA. And if it means going for a YubiKey type solution or something like that, it's worth doing because you're adding an extra layer of protection onto your environment. Cheap, again, if you're fighting the bean counters, it's always that interesting argument with finances. Well, this one's half the price of that one. Why am I paying for the difference? And being able to give you the information to help you articulate that in their language is a key part of that for us. Because if you say, well, this one does this, if they haven't got a clue what CryptoGuard is, it'll go in one ear and straight out the other. When you start talking about the fact that if you don't have it, you start looking at the risk register, putting things on the risk register. If we get a ransomware attack, we can't defend against it. They'll start taking notice because they'll start thinking about, okay, well, the impact is we could be out of the school for 6 months. But there's wording there, then please come talk to your partners or Sophos or another vendor, and we're more than happy to work with you on that sort of stuff. Because again, we've got your backs. You've got the brunt of it from both ways. You've got me telling you it's scary out there. You know it's scary. You've then got that interesting discussion with the schools then to explain it to them. And then the minute stuff starts going down, they're shouting at you, why isn't this working? Why haven't you cleaned it up? Why haven't you done this? Well, we've been telling you for 2 years, we haven't got an adequate solution in place. I don't care about it, I want it up as quick as possible. You get it from both ends. And that makes your jobs really hard, and we've got to help you as much as possible. That's probably my key takeaway from this is we're in it together. I mean, Chris has got me working with EduGeek and the team. I'm on the forums. If you need help from us as a vendor, give us a shout. Drop me an email. I'm more than happy to talk to people. But it is a scary world out there. It is ever changing. Bad guys are changing just as quick as we are. It's very much an arms race. But if you pick the right cybersecurity partners to work with, makes your lives a lot easier. That, I think, is me.